There we are. Good morning. So we're for the late start. So we're gonna call this meeting to order at 9:40 a.m. And we're gonna have a moment of reflection. So we are confirmation of the agenda. And have a recommendation of the council agenda dated September 2nd, be approved, is circulated. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Councillor Corview. All those in favor? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest for anyone this morning? No. Report of closed session. I had a closed session earlier, so in accordance to item 239 of the Municipal Act, that was personal matters about an identifiable individual, including the municipal or a local board employee. And we are on to consent agenda. Anybody like to see anything pulled? Items 6 to 6.16. Councillor Deputy Mayor Wilhelm.
I'd like to just pull 6.12. With that, I just would like to have our rep and maybe someone from Upper Thames come and perhaps explain why First South levy increased, yet the city of London's decreased by over $3 million.
I have a few questions in here too. We could request some from. Thank you, Councillor Corbin.
And further to the Upper Thames is in all their in four or five categories. I'd like them to explain to us on technical and consulting for over $1 million in. That's a budgeted line, so that's year after year, whether it's climbing or amendments climbing. So yeah, it'd be nice to talk to somebody about what that actually means.
They did save some money in the campground, but they put it in phosphorus reduction, so it didn't help us out. Any other comments regarding 6.12? Any other items to be pulled for discuss? If not, I have a recommendation that consent agenda item 6.1 to 6.16, with pulling out 6.12, be received for information, and that the regular council minutes of September 2nd, 2025 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Vanessa, second by, no, it is the August 19th. No, that's September. Oh, sorry, council. So I'm moving the minutes of August 19th, 2025, my fault. Yeah, second by Jeff Bell. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we're at public meetings, hearings and delegations, 7.1. We are here for a committee of adjustment for MV4 2025 2184 Perth Road 163. Okay, so the committee of adjustment will now hold a public hearing to consider a minor variance application. The application is for the property currently owned by Ron and Sharon Geisler. The application number is A04-2025 and the property is part lots 5 and 6, concession WMR Blanchard Ward 2163, Perth Road 163. This hearing is an opportunity for the township to advise the public of the purpose and intent of the minor variance and receive their input prior to making a decision. And I'm going to advise that any person present who wishes to make written notice of the decision made by the committee of adjustment is asked to give their name and mailing address to the secretary treasurer at this time. No written notices except as previously noted will be given unless requested at all. See anyone? I'm advising that all persons attending this hearing will be given an opportunity to be heard and to make a presentation. And I will now ask the Secretary Treasurer to provide any comments received from circulated agencies and landowners.
Thank you, Chair. Or there were no comments received.
Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in the opposition of the application and a request that they give their name?
the county planning.
Oh, okay, I will now have the county planner to present the planning report and recommendation. She didn't want to hear from me today. Go ahead, Haley, the floor is yours, sorry about that.
Okay. Wait for the presentation to come up.
I can see in person.
Oh,
Um,
you're first.
There may be,
No, that's me. No, that's better than the folder.
on here, there's.
Yeah, there might be some photos up there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I apologize. That's okay.
some of my slides make not sense, but we'll go ahead. Perfect. Good morning, Mayor and councilors. I'll be presenting minor variance application A04-25 for lands municipally known as 2184 Perth Road 163 in the Township of Perth South. The subject application is proposing relief to reduce the interior side yard width from 10 meters to 1.5 meters for grain bins over 12 meters. Relief to reduce the interior side yard width from 3.75 meters to 1.5 meters for grain bins under 12 meters. Relief to reduce the interior side yard width from 4.5 meters to 2 meters for buildings and structures subject to the site plan approval. And relief to increase the maximum building height from 12 meters to 30 meters for the existing grain bins. Side yard setbacks are generally intended to provide adequate buffering and screening between properties. In this case, the subject lands are used for farming practices and are not expected to create any privacy concerns or overlook between the proposed buildings and structures. Issues related to access and drainage have been appropriately addressed through the approval of site plan. The intent of height restrictions is to ensure that buildings and structures are compatible with the surrounding area in terms of scale and appearance. Height limits help protect the rural character of agricultural areas, minimize visual impacts, and prevent potential conflicts with nearby land uses. Grain elevators are essential components of farm operations, and due to their functional design typically exceeding standard height limits, as such, a variance is required to accommodate their operation within the ACM zone. There are no anticipated adverse impacts related to the existing grain elevators. In light of the foregoing, planning staff recommend the approval of minor variance application MV4-25. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilor Bennett?
Just one question here, the 30-meter height limit since bins, what about legs? Is that, can they go higher than 30 meters?
Through the chair, sorry, it was
So my understanding is we're increasing the height of a bin to 30 meters. What about the leg that services that bin? If a bin is 30 meters high, that leg has to be 40 to 50 meters high.
it speaks to buildings and structures itself. So in the ACM zone, they limit to 12 meters. So the request from the applicant was 30 meters.
So if he wants to put up a higher leg, he has to come back.
Through the chair, that's correct, based on what they requested.
Any other questions? Okay, so there's no comments received? No. Okay, is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in the opposition of the application and a request they give their name and address for the record when they are recognized? Seeing none, is there anyone present by video conference who wishes to make a presentation and speak in support of the application other than the agent applicant? And I request they give their name and address for the record, so they are recognized? No. Does the applicant and agent have any comments in respect to the application? Including Caroline Baker's here? The floor is yours, Caroline.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor or members of the council. Caroline Baker from Baker Planning Group, representing the owners this morning. Certainly a very thorough presentation. I just wanted to add that the intent of the minor variance is to implement an approved site plan application with site plan agreement, as well as the consent that came before you earlier in the summer. So certainly there are no proposed changes on the site. As a result of the variance, this will implement the approved site plan and is required simply because new property lines are being created between the retained farm and the agricultural use. Certainly that's, I think, all at this point, but also happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Caroline? Okay, seeing none, community committee will now consider a resolution regarding the application. So I have a recommendation that the Township of Perth South Committee of Adjustment approve application file MV 4-2025 submitted by Ron and Sharon Giesberg for lands described as concession lots, Mestral Road, part lot 5, municipally known as 2184 Perth Road 163, subject to the following condition: that the minor variance only applies to the proposal as applied for. Moved by Councillor Vanass, second by Councillor Jeff Bell. All those in favor? Carried. And now I am adjourning the hearing once the resolution moved to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Corview, second by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Carried. All right, we are at a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amended at 3860 line 9. Sorry, I have one. That's okay. Thank you. So we're moving into a public meeting. So I have to adjourn the regular meeting, moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, seconded by Councillor Corview. All those in favor? Carried. And this is an application for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment to satisfy condition 7 of consent application B 20-2025. The application is submitted by Henry Sturkenberg. Sturkenberry, did I say that right? No, Sturkenberg. Sturkenberg, okay, that's what I thought. No. Okay, it's for property described as lot 5 concession WOR Downing Ward 3860 line 8. I will now ask the clerk to advise and confirm on the method and date of the notice given for this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Orr. Notice was circulated by regular mail and a sign posted on the property as of August 12th, 2025, as required under the provisions of the Planning Act, as well as being posted on the Township website.
I'll now ask Haley to provide an overview of the application.
Thank you. I'll be presenting zoning bylaw amendment 5-25 for lands municipally known as 3860 line 9 in the Township of Perth South. The subject lands are located north of line 9. The surrounding properties are primarily used for agricultural purposes, and the subject property is designated as agriculture in the county official plan. Additionally, the property is currently zoned agricultural. The subject application is required to satisfy a condition of consent application B 20-25, which received conditional approval on July 5th, 2025 by Hayward County.
Haley, can you just speak up a little bit?
Sorry.
Yeah.
To sever a farm dwelling as a result of a consolidation of the remnant agricultural lands from an existing agricultural operation. The subject application proposes to rezone severed lands from agricultural zone to special agricultural zone A1 to permit the existing residential and accessory uses. The application also proposes to rezone the retaining lands from agricultural zone to special agricultural zone A3 to prohibit any new residential development on the agricultural lands. In light of the foregoing, it is the opinion of staff that the zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial planning statement and conforms with the County of Perth official plan. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does the applicant or agent wish to provide any additional information?
What? No, so.
No, okay. I will now ask the clerk to provide any comments received from the circulated agencies and landowners.
Thank you, Mayor Orr. No comments were received.
Is there any person in attendance who wishes to make any comments regarding the application? All persons are to state their name and address for the minutes. Seeing none, do any council members have any questions regarding the application? Councilor Marco?
Just on the minimum acreage for these services, where do we land on that? It's more of a broader question. I think we get them on later on. That's 75 acres. So just wanted to know.
Through the chair, do you mean for the size of the agricultural parcel or the?
Yeah.
So they have to meet the minimum, but with that A3, it's a more lenient process. So we recognize in that A3 that it's an undersized agricultural lot, but still being used for agricultural purposes. So it can't be further developed or anything with that A3 on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Councilor Vaness?
Just one question here. We have, on this application, the next one also talking about consolidating.
Yeah.
is that actually attaching the land, this, was it 19.8 hectares back to the property behind it then, or is it still separate?
Through the chair, it's consolidation of the property owners on title, so it's not to abutting lands, it's to. In some cases it could be, but it's more so in regards to the farming operation on title, so it has to be consolidated with another farming operation. As the name, that's the word we use.
Okay, but you're not attaching those two parcels?
No. No.
Okay. We're still separate then, so, okay, very good, thank you.
Any further questions for Haley? Seeing none, does the applicant wish to respond to any comments?
No.
No. Okay, thank you to all those in attendance for their input, and council will consider all comments received when making a final decision on the application. So I am to adjourn this public meeting and reconvene into the regular meeting. So now, do you need me to, yes, this one, you are here. Adjourn. This is the adjourn, yeah. Yes, okay. Okay, so I have a recommendation that the public meeting pursuant to section 34 of the Planning Act concerning the application for a zoning bylaw amendment for the property located at 3860 Line 1 be adjourned at 9:45. Nope, 9:55. I'm having that day. Moved by Councillor Corby, seconded by Councillor Jeff Bell. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and now I have a recommendation that the Township of Perth South Council received the report dated September 2nd, 2025, entitled zoning bylaw amendment Z5 2025, submitted by Doug Reum and on behalf of Henry Sturkenberg, affecting lands described as concession WOR West, part lot 5-4. Municipally known as 3860 Line 9, and that the Township of Perth South Council approved the zoning bylaw amendment Z5 2025. Moved by Councillor Corby, second by Councillor Vanessa. All those in favor? Carried. That is done then.
Good.
All right, so we're moving on to 7.3, Haley Halama Planner, your consent application for B 35-25.
Thank you. I'll be presenting consent application B 35-25 for a surplus farm dwelling severance located at 1860 Road 138 in the Township of Perth. The subject application proposes to retain a surplus farm dwelling residence. The severed lands will be consolidated with a farming operation located at 5021 Line 8. The application is proposing to retain a residential lot that is approximately 1.04 hectares in area and contains a single detached dwelling, a dry shed, a metal utility building, a private well, and septic. The lands to be severed are approximately 53.39 hectares in area and are vacant and will continue to be used for agricultural purposes. A condition of consent has been included that will impose restrictions on future permitted uses of the severed and retained lots through the adoption of a required zoning bylaw amendment. The condition requiring a ZBA has been recommended to satisfy the requirements of the 2024 PPS and the County of Perth official plan. In light of the foregoing, staff are supportive of the proposed severance and are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement 2024 and conforms with the County of Perth official plan, subject to the recommended conditions of consent approval being fulfilled. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Haley regarding this? Okay, seeing none, I have a recommendation that the Township of Perth South Council advise the Land Division Committee or its delegated authority that the Township of Perth South supports the application B 35-25 submitted by Stanley Brookshop for lands described as concession W Mitchell Road, Lot 14, municipally known as 1816 Road 138, subject to the conditions listed in the report dated September 2nd, 2025. Moved by Councillor Martin, second by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm. All those in favor? Carried. Haley, you have one more consent. You must have been busy.
You haven't seen me for a couple months.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll be presenting consent application B 37-25 for a farm split severance located at 5320 line 8 in the township of Perth South. The subject application proposes to create an agricultural lot and retain lands for the same purposes. The severed and retained lands are approximately 31 hectares in area. Both the severed and retained lands are vacant of any buildings and are used for agricultural crop production. The official plan provides direction on minimum lot area of 40 hectares for the agricultural lands. Although the proposed severed and retained parcels do not meet the minimum, they both exceed the township of Perth South's minimum lot size requirement of 30 hectares for agricultural lots. As such, both parcels are of sufficient size to support ongoing and future agricultural activities, including flexibility for crop rotation and farm management. In light of the foregoing, staff are supportive of the proposed severance and are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement 2024 and conforms with the county of Perth official plan, subject to the recommended conditions of consent approval being fulfilled. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Haley on this one? Council Vanessa.
Just a question, it's not so much this application, but it looks like there was a house severed off of this one property at one time. I don't know if it was in the last years or 50 years ago. Is there any restrictions on the property?
Through the chair, this does not require them to go through rezoning because it's not through the surplus farm dwelling severance requirements.
So if we severed this house off today, could this applicant come back and sever it from two like he's doing now?
So through the chair, that lot has already been
I
created.
realize that.
Yeah.
But say somebody else came in, severed the house off on a property, something like this, could they then sever the farm down the road? Or are we putting restrictions on that now?
Through the chair, I don't know if I followed the question exactly, but if they merged the house that was already severed off and consolidated it with that farm, I guess technically they could.
No, I don't want to, so all I'm saying, this is 150, was 150 acre property.
Yeah.
Sometime in the past, we severed a house off.
Yeah.
We don't know the time frame. That's fine. If we had 150 acre property now with a house on it, and the landowner came to council now and says, I want to sever the house off.
Oh.
And if we do the surplus dwelling, that's all great. Can he come a year later, 2 years later, the following month and say, I'd like to split that 149 acres or 148 acres that are left? Can he do that?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Very simple.
Sorry.
I can't ask the question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Council Markville.
I think this may be another way that it might be the same question. So there's a red part that's retained. I don't know if I can put that up there. That red part is retained. Can we make, so they can build on that lot?
Through the chair, yes, there's no restriction for agricultural, so a single detached dwelling is permitted as an agricultural.
On there, okay, and then does it have to be severed on that lot, or can it be the same, can it be a separate owner, I guess is my. Do you know what I mean? Can they make
They
a
could-
residential lot on that?
They
separate
could go
lot?
through a surplus later down the road,
They
if
can.
they did decide to do that,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, I have a recommendation, that the Township of Perth South Council advises the Commission Committee or its delegated authority that the Township of Perth South supports the application file B 37-25 submitted by Curry Inc. Farms for the lands described as Blanchard Concession 4, Part Lot 16 and 17, municipally known as 5320 Perth Line 8, subject to the conditions listed in the report dated September 2nd, 2025. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Mark Bell. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Haley. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move to 7.5 for the Watson and Associates. You're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go. You can go.
Very good.
Again, if I send the house separate from. Then I don't have it over my tongue. But all legally, that's.
Yeah, you're not on the deal, you're good.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we are at 7:25, the Watson Associates Water Data Study. Sorry, I didn't get your name.
Maverick,
Agreed? Yeah. Okay, your floor is yours.
thank you. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here before council today. So my name is Maverick Baines. I'm a senior project coordinator at Watson and Associates. So we were retained by the township to undertake a water rate study to forecast water rates for your two water systems, the St. Paul's and the Black Creek systems. And the study is provided to you today in the council package. It's a very detailed report outlining the legislation, the customer profile, the anticipated growth, the expenditures over the 10-year forecast period. And that ultimately provides a rate forecast over the next 10 years for the two systems. And today's presentation will provide an overview of that detailed 100-page report, and just a summary of the analysis as well. In addition to the rate study, we also undertook a water financial plan, and that's required to be approved by council and submitted to the province as part of your water license renewal requirements. And I'll go into what the water financial plan is in a little bit more detail, but basically it's taking the findings of the rate study, which is provided on a cash flow basis, and converting it into accounting financial statements and forward-looking statements. So yeah, just as a brief agenda, we'll start with the study purpose and then get into what the current rates are, what the current customer profile is, and any anticipated growth within the two systems. And then from there, we'll go into the capital needs and how those needs are anticipated to be financed, and as well touch on life cycle costs, which are asset replacement and asset management needs. And then we'll talk about the proposed rates and then get into the water financial plan, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions. Next slide, please. And again, yeah. So essentially, these are the steps of the rate study. So we first have to identify all the current and future water system capital needs. From there, we identify how those capital needs will be financed over the 10-year period. And we also identified future operating costs, so your day-to-day expenditures, labor, staffing, chemicals, materials. And then we take a look at your existing rate structure and recommended rates to recover the cost of the two systems. Next slide, please. So ever since the Walkerton crisis, the province has passed a number of pieces of legislation related to water and wastewater, some of which are in effect today and some of which are still to be in effect through regulation. However, essentially what these various pieces of legislation really follow is the principle of full cost recovery. So whatever the costs of the system are, it is required that the users of that system pay or fund the full costs. And then this principle has been further solidified through the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act. And this requires municipalities to have a funding strategy in place related to asset management and future asset management needs. So that all of these items together really require that, again, the principle of full cost recovery. Yeah, next slide. So these are the current rates within the two systems as of 2025. So in Black Creek, the annual flat rate is about $16.94 per year. And in St. Paul's, it's about $15.99. So that works out to be about $141 to $133 per month. Within the two systems. There's 33 customers in the Black Creek system and about 36 in the St. Paul system as of today. Next slide, please. Through discussions with staff, we identified any potential new customers being added to the system. In Black Creek, there's no growth anticipated over the 10-year forecast period. However, in St. Paul's, we've identified 5 new units or customers that are anticipated to hook up into the system within the next couple of years. So we see the customers growing from about 36 to 41 over the next couple of years. Next slide, please. So, through discussions with staff, we developed the capital needs, and these were mainly, developed through the, forecast provided by Aqua, which is your water service provider. In addition to those needs, we also reviewed the township's 2022 asset management plan, which, provides, recommendations related to asset management and how much should be spent on an annual basis on, replacing, the existing assets. And that's really just to ensure that the township is following the requirements of the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act. Next slide, please. So in Black Creek, this is the 10-year capital forecast. So really what we're looking at over the next 10 years is a total expenditure of about $161,000. And that's largely related to asset management and the replacement of those existing assets, in addition to some other minor capital components. Next slide, please. And then similarly on the St. Paul side, the total 10-year forecast is about $217,000. And again, it's mainly related to asset replacement. However, there's also the additional minor capital components as well. Next slide, please. So municipalities have a number of different options in funding capital needs. So municipalities with a lot of growth would fund any growth related expenditures through development charges. However, that's not applicable here. Municipalities also have the option to finance any large expenditures with debt. However, we haven't assumed any debt over the forecast period for any expenditures. There's also any existing reserves and operating budget transfers. So that really what that is taking your in-year rate revenue, transferring that to the reserves, and then transferring that to fund any capital requirements. There's also grants and capital charges through the Municipal Act. However, we haven't considered those as part of this study. Next slide, please. So these are your reserves, reserve balances as of December 31st, 2024. So within the Black Creek Water Reserve, there's about 170,000. And in the St. Paul's Water Reserve, there's about 234,000. So based on that capital program, a couple slides back for the two systems, this is our proposed capital financing program. So really what we're looking to do is to fund all the capital through the existing reserves and then funding those reserves within your rate revenue. So essentially a portion of the user rate revenue is being transferred to the reserve funds to fund any capital expenditures. And just to touch on the life cycle costs and the asset replacement costs, the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act requires municipalities to plan for future asset replacements. So within the asset management plan, the total replacement cost of the water asset inventory is approximately $2.08 million in today's dollars. And what that equates to on an average annual level of investment or recommended level of spending per year is about $34,500. So we've allocated that provision between the two systems based on the proportionate share of existing assets. So we've added in additional provisions in the capital forecast to account for this recommended level of investment related to the replacement of assets. Next slide, please. So in addition to those more the capital components and those larger expenditures, there's also the day-to-day expenditures we have to consider. So things like staffing and utilities, all of that. So we've built that into the forecast as well. The majority of the expenditures have been inflated at about 2% on an annual basis. And then components such as hydro, materials, chemicals, those have been inflated at about 5% on an annual basis. And that's just those expenditures tend to increase at a faster pace than general inflation. So overall, this is the operating budget forecast for Black Creek. You can see the major component is that day-to-day operating cost, as well as the capital in the red there at the top. So you can see that over the 10-year forecast, the operating budget is increasing from about 59,000 in 2026 to about 83,000 in 2035. And then similarly on the St. Paul side, you can see there's a larger component related to capital. That's just because there's a higher proportionate share of the assets and the capital needs in that system. So within this system, the operating budget is growing from 72,000 to about 102,000 by the end of 2035. So to put all those components together, the rate forecast is set up to ensure full cost recovery and that the users of the system are paying for the costs related to those systems. So what this translates to is a 5% annual increase for the Black Creek system over the first 5 years, and then 3% every year thereafter. On the St. Paul side, we're looking at a 6% rate increase over the first 5 years, and then similarly 3% every year thereafter. And these rates, like I said, provide for full cost recovery as is required by the legislation and aligns with the with funding the asset replacement recommendations as well. So just taking a look at some of your comparators, you can see that the township's water rates are on the higher end relative to some of your neighbors. And that is typical of a smaller system. There are economies of scale in larger systems where costs can be spread over a larger number of users. Black Creek and St. Paul systems aren't metered, they are on a flat rate, so and a lot of your neighbors are metered, so the survey is based on an annual consumption of about 200 cubic meters per year. So if we go to the next slide, we also took a look at 300 cubic meters, just because it is unclear how much water is being used by the customers within the two systems. And you can see that the rates are a little bit more in line, but they are still on the higher end. So with water meters, users are incentivized to use less. However, the costs of installing, maintaining, and operating meters, they have to be weighed against the benefits of lower water consumption. Next slide, please. So for any new users that connect into the system, there is a connection fee, and that's currently set at $2,000. That's based on a bylaw that was passed in 2002, and it hasn't been updated since. So as part of this rate study, we're recommending that these rates be indexed to current dollars, just so that the charge is better aligned to the cost of the system. And that rate would result in a connection fee of about $5,500 per property. And we took a look at some of your comparators, and that is generally in line with what others are currently charging. Next slide, please. So as I touched on at the beginning of the presentation, all municipalities that provide water services are required to be licensed by the province. And as part of those licensing requirements, the township is required to submit a financial plan to the province. And that's guided by regulation. And this financial plan must be approved by council before submission to the province. So the water financial plan is also included in your package, but really what it's doing is taking all those findings from the rate study that I just touched on and converting those from a modified cash basis to a full accrual basis. So more accounting based financial statements. So in the rate study, what we do is we look at various components, and then we convert those for the financial plan. So when it comes to the capital requirements, we take a look at the capital forecast in the rate study, and then we convert those to a tangible capital asset forecast for the financial plan. Any previously acquired assets, we look at the future replacement costs in the rate study, and then in the financial plan, we look at historical cost. Amortization is not applicable in a rate study just because it is on a cash flow basis. However, it's included as an operating expense in the financial plan. And then reserve transfers are included as an expense in the rate study. However, in the financial plan, they're included as part of the accumulated surplus. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent presentation. Excellent. Any questions from council? Anyone? Councilor Marco?
Just on the connection fee, I see it's almost roughly three times the amount of money 23 years ago. Where did that come from? Where did the index rate for the connection fee, so we get $5,500 per property? I didn't get to that number.
Yeah, we inflated it by the non-residential building construction price index from 2002 to 2025. So it's been pretty significant, especially over the past couple of years, so it's just keeping up in line with inflation.
Councillor Jeff Bell?
Just to follow up on that, so that's in line with our comparators. I know we've got charts for our rates, but that's that $5,500 is in line with our comparator as well.
Through the chair, yes, we did take a look at that. I didn't include it in the presentation. I can provide it through Tracy after. But yeah, we did take a look and it's probably in the mid-range of your comparators.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin?
I just have a question, and maybe this is more of a market question, but if somebody puts a secondary dwelling, say in Sebringville on the Black Creek system, do they hook into the system or does it go through their existing house?
Go ahead.
It would go through the existing.
Okay.
Councillor Kirby?
Further to the connection, a lot of times you have to cut pavement and then repay, so. I know that it can be very expensive, like does $5,500 cover all that? Like you said, we're mid-range to compare to our comparables, yeah.
Through the chair.
I can, against that mayor work. This would be, like a buy-in connection fee, and any additional costs would be over and above that. Or if there was a road cut or special parts required or whatever. Okay, yeah.
You don't happen to know the fee if we put meters on homes?
So that would have to be rationalized through a business case. We did take a high level look at it. It is a pretty significant cost to install and operate and maintain the meters.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have to be rationalized.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vaness?
Just a question, I guess, so these 5 new residences, do they have to hook up to our water system? Pardon?
I can answer that one as well. There's a bylaw that they would have to connect here. It's in the village of St. Paul's here, so.
That's unfortunate, because the costing for this, if I was a resident in Black Creek or St. Paul's, I would opt out now and drill my own well. The costs are outrageous here. I do have a few questions, so could you put up the rate study, just so people can follow along?
Water rate, I mean,
You can, maybe you can, I don't know.
the study here.
Yeah, yes, it's something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Page 16, sorry, I don't have the page numbers.
This, right here,
One back, I think.
one six. Oh, I think, wait,
Yeah, the one here talks about the guidelines of sustainable drinking. We talked about, principle 1 is ongoing public engagement transparency. Were the users of these systems, there's only 65 users, were they involved in this study? Have they been asked about this study? Because this is not township is not paying for this, it's 65 users. Have they been involved in this study so far?
No, no.
Should they be? That's a question to you,
Through the chair,
because you put the page in, so it must be involved.
yeah, so I guess they would be invited to come to this meeting and speak at this point. The rates aren't being attained through this process. It's the rate study, and then the rates themselves would be approved through the annual budgeting process as well.
Well, just the principle 9 here too talks, financial plans, benefit close collaboration, engineers, accountants, auditors, utility staff, municipal council, but nowhere are users involved. I struggle to see the fairness of it. Let's see. You talked later on about grants for municipal systems and the opportunity for historical and current grant funding availability on 4.4, page 4.4. There are various grants, PTI, transit infrastructure fund, the Canada Community Building Fund, and the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. Have applications can be made to these funds? Have we done that?
Through the chair, those can be, there's certain eligibility requirements for all of those funds. Those would have to be reviewed as on an ongoing basis, particularly for larger expenditures. The township's expenditures tend to be a bit smaller, so they might not be eligible. Those would have to be looked into on a case by case basis.
So you have it in here, page 410. You can bring that up. And we're using some numbers here, for budget 2025. So we start off, with a new well, drinking well, $160,000. And where did that number come from?
Through the chair, that came through the budget documents provided by staff.
That's just a budget, well, that project hasn't been tendered yet. It may come in higher, it may come considerably lower. A year ago, that number was 60,000. But I mean, we're using that number for all our forecasts. So should we not wait until we actually do the tender?
Through the chair, it's just the best available information at this time and to forecast the rates.
Okay, and then farther down, about 6, 7 numbers down, we have a well inspection for $85,000. What number is that? Where did that come from? Council has not heard anything about that.
Through the chair, that came from the budget as well. I believe it's provided by Aqua as their recommended.
That's first, council's for $85,000 for a well inspection. What are they, we're drilling one new well, the other well may need a camera for $4,000. I'd like to know where $85,000 came from, because between that 85,000 and the new drinking well at 160, we've blown the whole reserve out of the St. Paul's reserves.
Possible to have Aqua come and answer that question? That's where that number came from?
Yeah, it came from their, sorry, through you. Yeah, it would have came from their, budgets,
Like, the reason I bring this up, we're being asked to pass this today. I think there's absolutely no way this can be passed today at this meeting.
through you, Mayor. Yes, you're not being asked to approve these rates today. It's just a rate study for us to bring to council next year for the budget process. What you're being asked to approve is the financial plan so we can get our water license.
The financial plans are based on all this information. How can we have a plan based on an $85,000 cost, which isn't there? We're starting off with numbers that don't make sense. So I would argue that makes the whole study useless, quite honestly. And then another question for you. So as we're doing, increasing the amount payable by the users, how have we decided to replace the parts on here? So we have well tanks, analyzers, all these various components of the system. How have we decided that one will last 2 years, one will last 4, one will last 8 years or 10?
Through the chair, that information comes from Aqua's analysis of replacement, their recommended schedule of replacing all these different components.
Would you happen to know, was there any consideration for the actual system itself, the underground part that services the houses in Black Creek and in St. Paul's? Like, there's lines under the ground. I don't know if they're plastic or steel, Kenwell, I'm sure Kenwell, but I don't see they're on here in this 10 years. So at least are those physical assets underground? Are they okay then?
Through the chair, I'm not 100% sure on that, but we have added in a provision for any additional asset management needs. And that comes out of the asset management plan, which does identify which assets do need to be replaced over the forecast.
So, I've got your 7.3 connection fees, I had a question on that also. We started at $2,000, you mentioned or calculated that, we're using the inflation factor of 20 years. If this is not cost recovery, then
Through the chair, it is based on what Penny Moss is undertaken in 2002, and that it's to better align with the costs of today.
what costs are the, if somebody's gonna dig a hole in the backhoe and hook up to the line, that doesn't cost $5,500.
So the existing assets, the existing users have used up some of those assets. The new users are going to connect into that system, and they're essentially paying for some of those existing assets.
So it's a development charge, really. It's a roundabout way of saying we have a development charge.
Through the chair, it's a capital charge through the municipal act.
Development charge, okay. Yeah, I guess, some of these, I'm coming back here to this, water tender. I mean, we're using $85,000, we're using $160,000, if we actually look at the tender that was used. Some of the costs of that $160,000, we could put the whole village up in a hotel for a hotel in Stratford for 4 days and save $20,000 while this well is going down. So I really do not believe these rate calculations are correct.
Tracy Johnson would like to say something.
Excuse me, Mayor, or that 85,000, I believe, is supposed to be in the Black Creek well inspection, because we've been having trouble with the well. I don't think it should be under the St. Paul's one.
$85,000 would be the
Ken, did you,
inspection is $4,000.
Ken, you were the one that added that, or you did not, it was a Black Creek inspection.
I don't remember adding that.
I think it's a question for Auckland, yeah. As to how they came to it. From what I understand then this morning, we are accepting this report, but we still have questions about it. That not necessarily you're going to answer, but Aqua should be answering. When it comes to the budgeting, if I'm right. Does that make sense?
Awesome.
Any other questions, Council Martin?
It's possible I missed it in here, but is there any section that speaks to the age and condition of the underground piping?
Through the chair, so it is through the asset management plan. We took a look at that, and that annual level of investment factors in that any replacement of those assets would come out of that provision that's required.
But I mean, does it say they're 75 years old, 28 years old, like?
Through the chair, so yes, the asset management plan does say that, so we took the weighted average of all those.
So there's no lining or anything that'll be needed in any of these systems in the next 10 years.
Within the 10-year forecast, there's nothing identified per se, but there is the ability, like if something were to come up through the provision, that could be funded.
So just to add more to this, if something was to happen to the water system, then we would have to charge the water unit interest if the tax rate had to pay for it. So this is the reason why we are trying to fund it completely. So yeah, so it's just, that's kind of why the province wants this financial plan, so that you're not using tax rates for to pay for water systems.
And I would have to agree that 85,000 for Black St. Paul's doesn't make sense, so.
Yeah, and I, somewhere in the back of my mind, I believe it was brought up that there's been problems with the well in Black Creek, and it was gonna have to have an inspection, and I think that did come from Aqua, but I just think it might be on the wrong line item, or chart, but we can look into that for sure.
Just one final question on your original presentation, which was good. Would you have the number of users for the other systems? So you have used North Middlesex, Stratford, doing a lot of various comparisons. Would you be able to get the number of users of the systems?
Through the chair, I have to take a look at what's available publicly. We've done some of those rate studies, so those ones I could definitely provide. It's just depending on what's available publicly, whether those rate studies have been posted on it.
Okay, well, that'd be great if you could get that. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, great questions and great report. We still have a few more things that we have to just narrow down, but thank you for your report. Okay, so I have a recommendation that the council receives the report on the water rate study from Meetin and Associates and further. How do we want to do this?
Well, this is the recommendation that Tracy gave me, so I would defer to Tracy too.
Okay, how do you want to change this recommendation?
Through the mayor, I believe we just changed it, that the report was received as information.
Okay.
And will be brought back the next council meeting for.
Okay. So I'll say that the council receives the report for the water rate study from Meetin and Associates for information. And further, we will have Aqua come to verify some points in the study. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wilhelm, second by Councilor Martel. All those in favor? Carried. Thanks again for your report. I am going to need a bit of a washer break, so I'm going to have to ask us to adjourn for 5-10 minutes, and then we'll be back. We'll be second. Sorry, Mark. Okay, on item 8, reports. Keep building division, bylaw enforcement officer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Orr, members of council. It's been another busy month in August. We issued 9 new permits. That represents a construction value of just over 2.2 million and just over 9,000 collected permit fees. Before I wrote this report, there was about 10 permits waiting in the queue. So year to date, we have over 100 permits, 106 to be exact. And that's just over, this time last year, I did just over 80. So we're busy. There was a significant number of inspections too. We did 49 last month. And there doesn't seem to be any, sign of it slowing down, like the phone's still ringing, so that's a good thing. We look forward to helping all the applicants. There was 2 new bylaw enforcement complaints for the month that we're working through, and no new property standards issues for the month. That's my report. Not Shelley, happy to answer the questions.
Any questions for Martin? Councilor Martin?
I'm just interested, are we at a higher building rate than other parts of southwestern Ontario?
In terms of construction value or, yes, and I think it's because of a significant industrial project we have going on right now. That really bumped up our construction values for the year. In terms of permit numbers, I think we're higher based on our population than our neighboring municipalities. They would issue more permits, but they also have a bigger pool to draw from.
Councilor Vince?
I was wondering, Martin, you don't have to answer this to me, for following me, would it be possible for you to take out that large commercial bill and see what the comparisons are between 24 and 25?
Sure, I can do that.
It's not fair to ask you, so.
It was significant in terms of construction value, I don't know the exact numbers, but I can give you a reference for the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Martin? Okay, if not, I have a recommendation that the CEO update report be received with information. Moved by Councilor Jeff Bell, second by Councilor Martin. All those in favor? Carried. We are on to the deputy CEO and treasurer. I'm going to put the council on the floor. Recommendation that the account payable listed dated August 14th, 2025 for the period of August 14th to 2027. Or to August 14th to 2025, with an amount of $467,863.66 be accrued.
Sorry, can I just make a quick correction? That should say dated August 27th.
Okay,
No, everything else is right. It's just I ran the report on August 27th.
all right. Motion put it on the floor, moved by Councilor Mark Bell, second by Deputy Mayor Bell. Any questions regarding the accounts on the floor? Councilor Mark Bell.
Do we have an electric pool heater at the, in, Curtin Wooden Pool, or is it propane? Just see if it's really big, is that a normal, 3,100 and change for the electric bill? Cool.
I can look into that too, Mayor. Pool heater is propane. And we get propane delivered, and there's quite a few bills for propane that we get. The electric bill would be, the main component of that anyway. There's a pretty large pump that circulates the water through the filters. Like it's 2 huge filters, and the pump is a pretty big one. So that would be, I would think, the major electricity user would be that circulates the water.
And that's normal compared to last year's.
I believe so.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the accounts? If not, all in favor? Carried. So, Casey, your report on the parking in the booth?
This report is in front of council to establish a cash and parking reserve fund. Under section 42 of the Planning Act.
we can require developers to, a charge, in the bigger areas, it's 2% for commercial and industrial of the land being developed, residential 5%, but we have such a small, area where we're gonna develop that our existing $500 per residential lot seems, like a standard, like a good charge, so we'll leave it at that, but, it, until now, it has not been being put in a reserve, it's just been used as, revenue, so it needs to be put in a reserve, and collect interest, so that when we go to, doing capital works or any other, recreational area, we have the cash, for them to use, so. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Any questions for Tracy? Councilor Ruffalo?
The $500, when was that decided upon and by whom?
It's been in the fees and charges bylaw for decades, yeah, it has never changed, but it does.
For all of them.
Yeah, but for the amount of building we do, it does seem sufficient.
Go ahead. I can also, comment that whenever there is a, circle severance done, this is a charge that is invoiced to the property owner, can we are creating a residential lot.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding that? So it's just something that we put into a reserve. Go ahead.
I think that was just my clarification, so we've been collecting this all along. Now we're just gonna have a proper reserve to track it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have a recommendation that the council receive the report titled Cash in lieu of Part-Time Reserve Fund as information, and further, the council approves the establishment of the Cash in lieu of Part-Time Reserve Fund. Move 5. Councilor Jeff Bell, second by Councilor Vanessa. All those in favor? Carried. Any correspondence? No? Okay, council reports. Councilor Vanessa, do you want to start?
Not much, or other than, believe it or not, I went to an open house. And went through, had a look at their endangered species, their turtle program.
Yes.
And it's one of the few programs they do not seem to fund themselves. They asked for public donations, and it was very well done, it was very interesting. I was glad I had the opportunity to go.
Great.
Other than that, no, nothing to.
Okay. Councilor Jeff.
Just to follow up on that, I actually had the opportunity to be a part of the turtle roots through the Species at Risk program. During construction in Abington, the builders or the GFE identified a turtle nest, had our attempts come out, took them in for incubation, and they released them during the day. There's 34, but because a number of us were working, they were able to leave 10 in the water and buckets so that we could get the kids out there after work, and it was a really neat experience. And they were within sight of where they were pulled from, so that was good. The only other thing is I did attend the Strong Air Framework webinar, very informative. I shared the slides for anyone that wasn't able to attend, so it was good.
Councilor Corby.
No, good.
Councilor Rapper.
Nothing.
Deputy Mayor.
All's fine.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up, yes, I was at AMO, I do not know what happened to the screen, but I was listening to you. I would say, AMO has some excellent networking opportunities this time, maybe you're just becoming a little more familiar with some of the players, but, I thought that was a good part of it for me. And I just wanted to mention, we had a Perth Joint Fire Advisory Committee. I did ask them if they could look at the possibility of reviewing our bylaw agreement with them, to see if we can change how the flow of information comes to us. Currently, there is a committee, it's like everything's already been decided for, it's more of an advisory committee, and, there is a possibility of them coming to us to, go over that. But having Chief Hunter then instead come here to council to ask everybody's questions, so. But that would be a longer term for the following 2027 new terms of office, but anyway, I just asked that question, just because we don't have 4 meetings a year, we tend to have 2 meetings a year. And sometimes they are half an hour, and I'm not sure that it's good use of anybody's time, because they have 3 staff people that go. CAO, secretary, and the chief, so. Anyway, I've just put that out there, just wanted our council to be aware, and I think Chief Hunter is planning on coming to the next day meeting, that would probably be in October. And he's gonna bring a report back on, the letter that we had, voiced to support when it came to the regulations. He's gonna bring, his opinion back as to, why it's in place and that to us, so. Other than that, just, lots of phone calls, and I was hoping that Nigel Belchamber was here, as I had mentioned before, that, he have asked him to come, we just mixed cross messages with Lizette as to when he was to come. But we're moving forward, I have seen some, print ads for our new CAO, I've seen some print ads for our deputy treasurer, so. And we have lost our recreation person, so I think, once the pool closes, that we will be reviewing that when we do our new CAO and strategic plan, so. Anyway, okay, I'll move on to any other council reports. Past this, bylaws, recommendation that bylaw 2825 being a bylaw of drainage works known as the Hepburn Drain. Branch A be given 3rd reading and properly signed and sealed. Moved by Councilor Mark Bell, second by Councilor Forview, all those in favor. Bylaw 33/2025 being the bylaw to amend the Perth zoning bylaw for the property located at 3860 line 9 be given 1st, 2nd, and 3rd readings and be properly signed and sealed. Moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Vanessa, all those in favor, carried. And we have a recommendation that bylaw 34/2025 being a bylaw to appoint an acting CAO will be given 1st, 2nd, and 3rd readings and be properly signed and sealed. Moved by Deputy Mayor Wellham, second by Councilor Forview, all those in favor, carried. There's no announcements. There is the Curfew Trail this weekend. We are going to, if weather permits, bring the fire truck, so if anybody has little kids that want to join us, you're welcome to join us on the fire truck. And there's no other business. Public question period, confirmatory bylaw, a recommendation that bylaw 35/2025 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution of the Township of Perth South begin 1st, 2nd, and 3rd readings and be properly signed and sealed. Moved by Councilor Martin, second by Deputy Mayor Wilson. All those in favor, carried. And I have a recommendation that the meeting does end by 10:56. Moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Gordon. All those in favor, carried. Thank you, everybody.